Interfacing is the most underrated sewing item that is not talked about enough. When applied correctly, at the right time, at the right place, interfacing can elevate the quality of your garment to the next level, giving it a professional look. In this video, I want to share 5 of my favorite interfacing tips. All of these tips are very easy and you will be able to apply them in any project you're working on. As easy as these tips look, they're absolute game changers. So let's begin with tip number 1 and my personal favorite tip. Use interfacing tape at the zipper line. Whenever you're installing a zipper, either it's exposed zipper or invisible zipper, you want to put a strap of reinforced interfacing at both sides of the zipper line. Now, why we're going to do that? The zipper itself is made from plastic or metal, and because of that, it has completely zero stretch. Your fabric, on the other hand, even though it's woven fabric, does have a little bit of stretch, it does have a little bit of give. And especially when we're making garments, zippers rarely are installed on straight lines, and they're usually installed either on a curve or fabric cut on the angle. When fabric is cut on angle or bias, it automatically gives fabric a lot of stretch. And because of that, when you're trying to install a zipper that has no stretch on fabric that has even a little bit of stretch, you will get either puckering or waving of the zipper. And if you're trying to match print, if you're trying to match seams on the zipper, it will be extremely difficult to do if the fabric is not interfaced. When we interface the part where the zipper will go, the fabric is stabilized and is no longer stretchy, making it not only very easy to sew in the zipper to match all the lines, to match all the seams, but also the zipper will last much longer because when we're pulling the zipper to open it or close it, the fabric is stabilized and it will last way longer. To stabilize the zipper seam, I have a few rolls of interfacing tape. This tape is about 2 centimeters width and it has these threads running lengthwise, which strengthen the tape even more. I apply the tape parallel to the zipper line. So if you're not doing this already, I highly recommend interfacing the zipper line. Now let's move on to tip number 2, and it's putting fusible interfacing on mirrored pieces. This is a tip that I learned from my sewing teacher back at sewing school, and when I first saw it, I was blown away because it's so simple yet genius. Whenever you're working with a pattern that has mirror pieces, let's say the front left and the front right, if the fabric does not have a very distinguished right or wrong side, it's very easy to put interfacing on same side twice. Now, to avoid this, you want to take both sides, put them right sides together and put it on your ironing board. Then put interfacing where you need to put it on one side and press. Then flip both details at the same time and apply interfacing on the second part. When you open both of those sides, you have installed interfacing perfectly on both mirrored sides without any confusion. This is such a great way how to avoid mistakes and having to take away the interfacing, which always leaves glue marks. So whenever you're working with mirrored pieces and fabric that does not have a distinguished right and wrong sides, remember to give this tip a try. Moving along to tip number 3, and it's about stabilizing the buttonholes or knit garments. When you try to put buttonhole in knit garment, even though you have put interfacing on the wrong side of the fabric still may have some stretch, and when the sewing machine is doing those stitches, it might end up stretching out the buttonhole. But there is one very simple way how to get better results, and it's to use cutaway interfacing. This stabilizer is usually used in machine embroidery, but we can benefit from using it in sewing as well. So when you're working on buttonhole on knit garments, take a little piece of that cutaway interfacing and slip it under the presser foot, under the fabric where you want to install the buttonhole. This interfacing does not have glue, so you can just slip it underneath the fabric when it's already under the presser foot. Then when you create the buttonhole, the stitches won't be stretched out. You can use this tip also when you're working with knit fabrics on your sewing machine and the sewing machine is having a difficult time to sew. You can slip a tearaway interfacing underneath the seam and then sew it, and the fabric will not get stuck inside the sewing machine. I want to add one more detail to this tip. If you're putting buttonholes on very fuzzy knit garments, you may benefit from adding water-soluble film on top of that part. Water-soluble film is again mostly used in machine embroidery, but when put on top of the knit fabric, when the machine is doing stitches, the stitches are not going as deep to the inside of the seam and they're not disappearing in the fuzz of the fabric. You don't have to use this tip for every knit fabric, but if you're having problems sewing the very fuzzy knit fabric and creating a beautiful buttonhole, try using water-soluble film to make those stitches a bit more beautiful. Before we're moving on to the next tip, if you're finding this video valuable, if it brings you value, I would greatly appreciate if you would hit the like button. Whenever a video gets a like, it helps reach more viewers, and I honestly believe that interfacing is not talked about enough and these tips could benefit fellow seamstresses. Thank you so much for your support, and let's move on to tip number 4. Tip number 4 is about cutting small details. Whenever you need to cut a small detail, maybe a color, maybe a waistband detail, when it's curvy, when it's not very big detail, when you cut interfacing, when you cut pattern detail, when you try to put that interfacing on top, very often you don't get very accurate results. That's mostly because interfacing is actually very difficult to cut because the fabric is very slippery, and when you try to move the cut interfacing and put it over the detail, it's really difficult to neatly match every line. But here's a very helpful tip. You want to take fabric piece which should be about the size that you need to cut those details. Then you're going to take interfacing same size as your fabric and put on top of your fabric and press. Then continue cutting your pattern details from already interfaced fabric and you will get absolutely beautiful results. Additionally, here I would like to add that interfacing is applied by putting the iron down, holding, and then lifting that iron and moving it and pressing it again. So when you're applying interfacing, you don't want to just keep moving the iron and dragging it, because this might move the interfacing and create bubbles or wrinkles. So to apply the interfacing smoothly, press the iron, lift, press, lift. And continue doing this until the interfacing is neatly applied. Final 5th tip is using small piece of interfacing at the top of the dart. Whenever you're working with thick, difficult to press fabrics, the top of the dart is always the most tricky part. No matter how well you press it, it still doesn't look as flat as it could. So what you want to do, you want to take a very small square of fusible interfacing and apply it on top of the dart from the wrong side of the fabric. This will keep your dart in the position where you want it and protect it from moving inside of the garment. And from the right side of the garment, you will get the very smooth dart finish. So simple, but it works. Here are all 5 interfacing tips that I wanted to share today. I have a few more tips about interfacing, so please let me know if you would like part 2 of this video. Also, I recently added 2 new designs to my Etsy pattern store. Elegant and timeless dolly blouse and absolutely gorgeous Florence pants. Dolly blouse is my favorite blouse that I already made in 3 colors, and I plan on doing more because this blouse pairs with everything I have in my closet. I love these designs and I hope you will enjoy them too, so I will link them both in the description box down below. Thank you for watching today and I will see you next time. Bye!